Empowering, sexy, and so difficult. I only became aware of pole dancing / pole fitness / pole. I'll get to the bottom of that soon. When I was at varsity, where I was seriously blown away by students' sultry and highly physical showcase performances. Gabby, Wellbeing Secretary of the University of Salford's Pole Fitness Society, believes there can be fun sexiness in the sport.
When you first join the society and you're sharing a pole with, a couple people, no one really tries to make it sexy then. But when we were practicing for varsity, all of us had to get in touch with some sort of musical side. I chose to go for more of a dramatic and lyrical. Some of the other girls decided to go for more of a sexy side. And it is really the way you carry yourself. When you're dancing alone in your room, you can do the same. Is the way, you touch your own body and just the way you present yourself.
Gabby is also used to answering questions about pole dancing's origins.
As much as, obviously, we don't promote it as such, but we still have to support sex work, especially in the way that they've formed this whole community. Sex work has formed what pole dancing and burlesque is today.
Dr. Rosa Vince, a philosophy lecturer at the University of Sheffield, questions what objectification is in their research.
I think we shouldn't be worried about whether something's objectifying or not. I think we should be worried about whether it's objectifying in a way that people have consented to. And one thing you might think is, well, when someone's doing pole as sports, it's disproportionately seen as sexual when people don't want it to be, then maybe something people can do is try and emphasize the similarities with pole as fitness to other kinds of sports and dance.
But Dr. Rosa is clear that sex work should not be stigmatised through this process. They argue that objectification can be negative, positive, and mundane, depending on the individual's preference.
If you say, when I'm on this stage, I want to be sexually objectified. When I step off this stage, I want you to treat me differently. And people respect your wishes on that. I think that sounds like you're exercising your agency, and I think that's really cool.
I went to gay-friendly fitness Damien Dance Studio in Manchester to put philosophical musings into practice. The studio is bustling with people, and I am nervous for my 1-hour session.
We're going into the room, so you can head on through.
So it's room number 4.
You'll be in room number 4, yeah?
Yes, I can head on. Great. The warm-up starts, and already it is very strenuous.
More or less, yeah. So what will happen next? We will use both knees for jigging position. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're going to
Damien assists the men's class to prevent injuries.
Yeah. So push. Chest to the side. Yes. Point the toes, legs back. Yeah, that's it.
I am struggling.
So you do freestyle, we have 1 minute freestyle, teachers videos, any video to try or repeat. Yes. If anyone wants to speak to the radio, yes, you can speak to radio.
Paul loves Paul and is friendly to me in my out-of-breath state. And really, I can't think straight, which isn't great for being a journalist, when I can't think of questions because I'm so tired, yeah.
The big question is, are you coming back today or are you just doing it for research purposes?
A few days later, my muscles are still aching, but I do want to come again. As Damien yelled a few times in session, without pain, there is no gain. And when I ask him for some tips, he's likably honest.
I always laugh and say to my friends, if you want to be good, you have to practice. You can't buy your flexibility or strength in Tesco or Aldi. That would be amazing, just going to the shop and say, hi, can I get a splits, please? But yeah, you have to just work really hard. You have to be consistent, like with everything.
Being good at pole or getting there is an achievement. And that, above all, is why it makes you feel good.
Yes. So, next one with the second.
I returned to the motherland, to Africa, to Zimbabwe. I went home. Home to where I belong, home to where I felt like I could be free to be me in all of my African glory.
That was Tashinga Mataway, a spoken word artist and youth activist. She is concerned about the life chances of young Zimbabweans, rather than Commonwealth membership.
There's still a lot of issues that are happening in Zimbabwe that need to be dealt with and sorted with. And if the Commonwealth can help support that, that would be great. But then the question then becomes, how would you actually begin to support that? Yes, there's been a change in governance, but in terms of how the average person lives in Zimbabwe, there isn't that much of a change. There's people who are still struggling to get food on the table. There's people with degrees, people with masters that are unable to find jobs. There's a 95% unemployment rate amongst the young people of Zimbabwe.
Dr. Sue Onslow is the director of the Institute of Commonwealth Studies. The Commonwealth requires a consensus between members for a country to be allowed in, and Dr. Onslow is against Zimbabwe's readmission, despite the numerous trade and networking benefits membership brings.
If it were allowed back into the Commonwealth, any argument that the Commonwealth is a values-based organisation, to my mind, just completely dissipates. It goes out of the window. The Commonwealth can't sort out the problems of opposition politics and political repression, but in no way should it lend its kite mark of legitimacy to repressive regimes.
Perhaps a Commonwealth re-entry would be a cause for celebration, but Zimbabweans have learnt in the past 6 years that jubilant parties, such as when Mugabe was forced to resign, do not solve harsh economic hardship or political struggle.
Whether or not Zimbabwe are able to join the Commonwealth or not, I just want to really push for all Zimbabweans, all the diaspora, everyone in the Commonwealth, everyone in general, just to keep hope. We're going to go against corruption. We're going to go against the things that we're used to. And it might make us feel uncomfortable, but in the long run, this is where we need to be. And my question is long overdue to all of you. What is home? The one you belong to.
A sunny and seemingly safe day in South Yorkshire, but for campaigners, this section of the M1 near Rotherham is a bleak and tragic smart motorway death trap. This is where Jason Mercer and Alexandru Maganu died in June 2019, after being crashed into by a lorry. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak vowed to ban smart motorways in his leadership campaign, and in the last month, the government has cancelled new smart motorways, scrapping 14 plans. But existing smart motorways, a tenth of England's highways, will remain.
He was driving to work, he was near Meadowhall in Sheffield. He had a minor bump with another motorist. It should have just been that, just a minor incident, a bad start to the day. But because it happened at a sign that said no hard shoulder for 4 miles, and 4 years ago we knew less about smart motorways than we do now, I assume they didn't really know exactly what to do. If the hard shoulder hadn't been removed in the first place, the driver would have been in a separate lane. They prosecuted him on the basis that he didn't react 3 seconds quicker. They give you something like 3 seconds to react, and he took 6 seconds. Well, so they're saying he took 3 seconds more than he should have done, so therefore wasn't paying enough attention. But if the hard shoulder had still been in, Jason and Alexandru would have been in an entirely different lane. And yes, I objected to him being prosecuted. Started legal action within a couple of months of Jason's death, the judicial review to get smart motorways banned by the High Court. But unfortunately it's moving incredibly slowly and it's still ongoing in the background. But it really feels like we'll win in the court of public opinion before we win in the High Court now.
The Daily Mail's campaign and a reveal by The Sun that the AA won't let breakdown crews stop on them has increased awareness.
Taking the right and taking the driver's responsibility away, but maybe in some people's eyes it's a good idea, but not in mine.
We were driving back from Harrogate, and on the M62 there was a section where there were no lit up signs, even though there were roadworks, and I was going through saying this really should be a 40 or a 50, and there was nothing lit up. It was terrible.
I disagree with the fact that there's no way for you to go if you've got a problem on a motorway. So we should get rid of them. Full stop.
Jason's just not here. There's nothing to say he was here, and there's nothing to say why he died. And I just, to me, the campaign was a deflection. I didn't grieve properly. We're now 4 years down the line, and I've only just done what I've been meaning to do with his ashes. I've just fired his ashes into space. 4 years down the line, I didn't grieve properly, and I do think it's important that we win this in his name, that we get a law changed. You know, he died. But at least if we can say that his death pushed a law change, then there's some reason for it.
High pressure and hot power showers may become a thing of the past, as the government considers banning high flow products, including dual flush toilets, to keep up with rising water demand.
Customer couldn't be using a power shower for 10-15 minutes unless, of course, they had an unlimited amount of hot water. Suppliers are now introducing water-friendly taps. Over the course of a year, you know, there can be a hefty saving on water just by aerating. People that need and want to have a walking path or any of the products that we supply and use, then it would be a great disadvantage to them.
People have been campaigning about this for, to be honest, 2 or 3 decades in terms of saving water and promoting opportunities to reduce water consumption related to those sorts of things. But this is piffling at the edges of the problem. It's really not getting to the nub of the problem. So, yeah, we'd support it, but it's not the only or even the most significant thing that ought to be done.
I'm not even sure it would be seen as a nanny state per se. I mean, a lot of nanny state policies actually, unfortunately, are fairly popular with the public. If you're just picking on minorities, be they, you know, smokers or gamblers, actually bans are fairly popular with a lot of people. But it was, I mean, there doesn't seem to be any legitimate environmental objection, because essentially all you're doing is you're building a lake. You know, you're creating something for nature and something that's actually rather attractive.
We get water from the Lake District. We have reservoirs in the Pennines. We have the Peak District. We get water from North Wales, so we're actually in a good position. We already have good infrastructure to provide us with water. But we make new ones, but if you make new ones, you've got to flood the land, and there's other implications of that too. You know, if you're going to build a big dam and you're going to flood the area, then, you know, that land there is no longer usable for anything.
The money is simply not going back from the water companies to actually repair the leaks. This is where the problem is, and this is where the government should be acting.